Good morning, my brothers and sisters. On this, our inaugural episode of This Week in Xbox Game Pass, or Twix GP. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine morning, afternoon, evening, or night as we discuss the latest and greatest with the best deal in gaming. I am your host today, the Sony Pony in Xbox clothing, Lucas Ham Swisher. Also with me, the Game Pass ambassador who has prayed, you like to pray.
Yeah.
Has played pretty much all the video games, Patrick Novacell.
Yeah, I do like to play a lot of video games.
You do.
This is the perfect avenue to do it.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, you got like over 100 games to choose from. You're locked and loaded with new and old games alike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Patrick, we're starting a new thing.
We are. Episode 1 of Twix GP.
Old Twix GP. Is that like a mix between candy and GT is cars? I don't know where to go with the GP part. But
it's your weekly or bi-weekly or however often we're going to do this. Your candy influx of Game Pass games.
All right, that sounds good. It's it's tasty. You just got to unwrap it and see what's inside.
I don't know. I feel like some of these games that we might be playing, if you unwrap it, you're like, ooh, that I should not have bought this.
That right.
Needs to go back on the shelf.
Yeah, that is correct. So where we're going to go with this game is we're going to try to be, you, dear joiner, we're going to try to be your guide to pretty much the Game Pass library over the course of the next weeks, months, maybe years, who knows. We are going to talk about the current games, the past games, if it's available on Game Pass, we're going to try to play it, talk about it, spoilercast it, roast it, rank it. We're going to hit all the major points and hope to really just give a little corner for the GMG community to talk about Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
And you're the reason I can do this. Thanks to you. You got me an Xbox for Christmas, and now I'm using that old Xbox Game Pass to play as many video games as I can squeeze in. Though, as I alluded to in my intro, I am more on the PlayStation side, but I enjoy some of the Xbox exclusives or the games that are available on both, and I can try them out for free. So
yeah, exactly. That's what's great about Game Pass. You don't have to play them to completion. It's great to just try them out. It's like your own local little library rental system.
Yep, exactly. It is. It's like a little library. Did you ever rent video games from the library back in the day?
No, I still have not. I have Game Pass. I have PlayStation Plus. I am soon to have Steam, Epic, all that stuff. Where it's just like, hey, here's free games.
You are, Mr. Steam Deck. Yeah, I definitely rented CDs and burnt them on my computer back in the day.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way. I definitely got movies sometimes, but I never did video games. Never did those. All right. Well, today we happen to both play the same game, and you probably, who are listening, already know what we're going to talk about, so this is no surprise to you. But Trek to Yomi. It's definitely a newer game on that old Xbox Game Pass. I think it came this month of May, or last month of May, depending on when you're listening to this.
Last year, 2 years ago, who knows?
Last year, yeah, 5 years ago in May of 2022. So let's start with just a good old-fashioned spoiler-free review, just to kind of hit our bullet points, talk about how we felt about the game, and then we'll jump into spoilers, because this was definitely a story worth talking about. So Patrick, Go ahead and share your spoiler-free thoughts.
Yeah, when I saw the trailer for this game, it was black and white, and it felt to me like it was a side-scroller, 2.5D side-scroller kind of thing of Ghost of Tsushima.
Exactly.
And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm definitely in. It's on Game Pass. Might as well give this a try. And I booted it up and didn't realize that 100% of the audio dialogue is in Japanese and with English subtitles. Now, I tried to do that with Ghost of Tsushima, and I was like, no, I need English. I can't do the Japanese audio dialogue, and then have to read subtitles. And that's one of the things that I found very, very interesting with this game is the Japanese with the English subtitles. However, there were some times where I forgot to read the subtitles. I'm like, I'm so interested in what's happening on screen
Yeah,
that I
sure.
forgot to read, and that was small little gripe that is really only on me. But the game is beautiful. The game is, it is black and white, but it is a beautiful black and white. The way they did this game, there's an option that you can have on like a grain filter for like a more of like an old school Japanese samurai kind of look. You can also turn that off, which makes it look a little more cleaner. Looks more like a new game. You're actually playing a game and not watching a movie. So as I'm playing through the game, I'm turning that thing on and off. I didn't
Right.
really, I didn't know which one was better. I think it's great to experience both. I just didn't, I didn't have a preference with that. And then so as you start off. Well, here I'm starting to get into spoilers already.
Well, hey, you start off.
Yes, no, yeah, but
you stop that right now.
the gameplay. So the gameplay was not deep, but it was cool where you started off without only having a few like combos, and as you get into, you learn more combos as you play the game, and the combat, it gets a little bit, I would say a little bit easier. I play the game on easy mode, so I usually with games that I am not looking to play for a long period of time or just want to try out, I usually just throw on easy mode so I can just get a taste of it. And I was on easy mode and I didn't turn it off. I didn't change the difficulty. So I had a fantastic time with this game. This game is, like I said, beautiful. Gameplay was not too deep, very simple, good for a bite-sized game. This game was only like 4 hours or so long. And yeah, so I really like this game. I don't think there were some things that I wish could have been done differently. Sometimes some things fell a little long in the tooth and not really explained. But overall, this game was really fun.
What would you rank it?
Ooh, I would rank this maybe a 7.5 out of 10.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, 7.5 out of 10. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
I had
What about you, Lucas?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a very similar. Wait, before I go,
Well, yeah.
why don't you go again? So I had a very similar mindset going into it. I thought the presentation, the atmosphere in the trailer looked amazing, and it didn't disappoint. It really felt like a side-scrolling Ghost of Tsushima. And again, because you already alluded to this, with the gameplay not being overly complicated, I will say that Ghost of Tsushima kind of made this settle gameplay-wise a little poorly on my part. I felt it was very one-dimensional, and in part, I'm going to say that I think part of the problem was that easy was too easy. I've played games where they're easy, but they still encourage you to use all the combos and the extra stuff. And this game on easy was just like, it was brainless. Like I could just run around and just mash the button and they would eventually die, like the enemies. So I really could just be a tank and take it. And I didn't really like that as much. I would have liked a little more variety in gaming. I don't know, like a hook shot or maybe some verticality or some other stuff to kind of add to the flow of it. But in terms of visuals, fantastic. The story was typical revenge. I would say average at best. The Japanese only track and having to read subtitles, not a fan. I also missed parts of the game or parts of the story or what was being said. And I thought with the black and white, it was kind of hard to read the subtitles sometimes.
Oh my gosh, it was. Yes.
I needed could you give me like some pink subtitles or something where it's like really clear what they're saying? But it is what it is. I do appreciate them committing to like the atmosphere and the feel of the Kurosawa type, film and that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed that. I did find the gameplay, like I said, the fighting mechanics to be repetitive. I liked the overall look of it was almost like a robot chicken claymation feel to it at times. Like I felt like they had little puppets and it controlled like little puppets sometimes, like the way you attack them or they ragdolled when you killed the enemies. And that was kind of weird sometimes, but overall, again, beautiful game. The one thing that was both the most hilarious part to me and also the most annoying, because it just got old after 7 missions is the screaming in agony. Every character, every enemy you killed screamed the loudest they possibly could. And after just hearing over and over and like going through some of the areas, like not just the enemy screaming, but the victims and the villagers, it got old. Like I felt like I was just constant screaming. Like I couldn't play more than a chapter or 2 at a time. I think you played this thing like in 1 or 2 sittings, right?
Yeah, 3 sittings. It took me 3 sittings to get through, which is fine. I mean, like you said, it was hard to binge this of sorts. It was hard to play all the way through. I had to do it in chunks.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, and kind of like there were a couple levels that I was like, when is this going to be over? Like I don't understand why they're still coming. Like the enemies are still coming. It just seemed like it's lasting forever. And it felt like a fake, almost a fake ending multiple times. And then, halfway through the game, adding puzzles, I was just like, what are you trying to do
these
here?
Puzzles too. I mean, these puzzles are super simple. They're like, hey, match these symbols.
But they were so simple. It's like, why is this even here?
Is this part of the game?
Yeah, I felt like a toddler. I was just like, oh, insert the triangle into the triangle-shaped hole.
Yeah, no, it's so simple.
So my rating will turn out to be a little lower. I thought this game was average at best and a little long in the tooth, so I gave it a 6.5 blood-curdling screams out of 10. So
okay.
that was my rating for it. So there you go. So not the worst. Definitely not the worst Game Pass game.
No.
Not the best. They're definitely, but in terms of like the short bite-sized, I think it took me a little longer than you two. I definitely did not. It didn't feel like 4 hours for me, but it's still a bite-sized game. It's under 10 hours, under 8 hours. And so definitely I would recommend people trying it out. And after a couple levels, if you're still into it, keep going.
Yeah. You gave it a 6.5. I gave it 7.5, but I definitely recommend this game. Yeah, at least to try.
For sure.
It's definitely a recommended game. I guess, going forward when we're doing all these other games that are coming in future episodes, we'll also recommend or not recommend games. But this is a game that I definitely recommend to at least try.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. So let's get into spoilers because there's definitely details of the story I want to discuss. Some to laugh about, some to just kind of be like, huh? about. It definitely got interesting. So if you haven't played this game, pause, play it, come back. If you just want to find out what's going on with Trek to Yomi, feel free to join us. So we're going to jump into the spoilers. Mm-hmm. So chapter 1, you start as Hiroki. You're a kid. You're fighting your sensei, who you discover later is your dad. And pretty much the first level is like your introduction to being a samurai, the tutorial, teaching you all the moves and such. What did you think of this first chapter, Patrick?
It was, for me, like I said, it was a little bit jarring because I was like, oh, this is all in Japanese, And so I was like, oh, wow, this is it. But I think it laid a good foundation for the rest of the game.
Yeah, definitely. It gave you the basic concept of what's going down.
Yep.
And so there wasn't anything of note from the first chapter. They introduce your sensei/dad. They introduce your sister, Aiko, I think.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And pretty much Aiko's like, you better go helping dad, go help sensei. And, sensei tells you not to go, but you go anyways. And I tell you what, out the gate, this kid is like cold-hearted killer. Like there was no like, oh, let me figure this out. He's like, you are going to die. I'm going to kill you, make you bleed your own blood. Like, it was just like, all right, let's do this. It was intense. I think it was intense from beginning to end. There was not a laid back, calm moment in this entire game. So, chapter 2, the end of chapter 1, your dad/sensei dies, and he tells you to never leave your sister's side again, to stick with her, protect the village, etc.
And does he do that? No, he does not.
No, he does not. Not after we also have to mention, because it's important to the story, the guy who kills his sensei dad, he cuts off his nose, and that guy supposedly dies, I think.
He does not die. No, he doesn't die.
Well,
does he die?
Does he die in the chapter?
Shoot.
Rayla. Rayla, shush.
Yeah.
This is none of your concern.
This is where the story kind of like is more of like it's abstract and you don't really know unless you really dive deep into it.
So either you kill him or you maim him very badly.
But he till the end of the game, which we'll talk about because there's like 4 different endings. No, he does not die because. Oh no.
Time out 1 second.
Okay.
I have a package at the front. You can just cut this out. I'll just
Sure.
be a couple minutes. Be right back.
Okay.
Okay. My dog's barking at these guys that are not leaving right away, so you just go ahead and talk about.
What were we talking about again?
Talk about the guy that maybe died, maybe didn't, and then just go ahead and lead us into chapter 2, where we're adults, or we're an adult Hiroki.
I don't remember. What was chapter 2 again?
All right. Just go ahead and talk about the guy. That's where you lead.
I'll figure out a place to stop. You can just lead us into chapter 2, and then I'll figure out what place to stop.
So we think we're not sure. We possibly avenge our sensei dad. We possibly didn't. But fast forward to being adults. Chapter 2, your village is getting attacked again. And this time, Hiroki, the character you're playing as, he takes to fight to the bandits. So you leave the village and you go running after the bandits. And you eventually, like your whole group, like your whole crew of like a dozen samurai, they all get captured or killed. And you're fighting through the forest. And you run into a spear guy who says, ha ha ha, you fell into our trap. You kill the spear guy. And then you return back to the village. For me, at this point, this is when I remember Yomi being mentioned for the first time. Because like chapter 1 and 2, it's like most of the time you're defending your village. And I'm like, what's Yomi? Like, I don't understand. Like, no one's mentioned Yomi yet. I'm like, where are we trekking to? So What'd you think of chapter 2? Any thoughts on going out
I
into the
think I, th-
forest?
I think this was the chapter 2 where it's like you leave your sister behind, and
Yeah.
it's like you leave everyone behind, and you take the you take the bait basically,
Pretty much.
and then realize like, oh my gosh, this was a ruse. This was a distraction because the entire village is being just destroyed.
Yeah.
Everyone's killed. All the villagers, all of his fellow samurai, all of them have died. And at this point, you end up. Is it chapter 2? You end up dying?
No.
Nope. Is that chapter 3?
Chapter
Maybe.
3. So
Okay.
so you return to the village in chapter 3. This is for me where the screaming, I was just like, okay, seriously. Like everybody in the village is screaming. Every person you kill is screaming, and it all feels like the same screaming. It's just like, like it's just like endless amounts of screaming.
Scene after scene as you're going back through the village, scene after scene.
Yeah.
It's just.
If you're looking for a pick-me-up, do not play this game. This game is not for good feelings. This is like hardcore samurai tragedy, pretty much.
Yeah.
So you finally get to who the mastermind behind this trap was, where they led you out of the village, lead you back in, and it's the noseless guy that you definitely did not kill in chapter 1.
I think his name was like Kaguru, Kilimanjaro,
Kangaroo.
something like that.
Kangaroo.
Kangaroo. Okay.
Kangaroo.
Right.
So you face off against Kangaroo. I don't know about you, but I went down like a punk. Like I went in thinking I could just mash the buttons to beat him, and he killed me within like 2 hits. And I'm like, wait, what? And then you die.
You have to parry. You have to block. You have to do the moves.
Oh yeah,
even on easy. For this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So did you put up a fight? Did you last a little bit with him, or did you?
No, I think I died at least a couple times. But once I figured out like, I have to use the gameplay mechanics that I just forgot about in the first couple chapters.
Right.
That I was like, okay. So, but yeah, it didn't take long. I would say I was on him for maybe a few minutes.
No, but this one was the one where you had to die.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't actually. Spoilers to all the way at the end. I found out you don't have to die. You can beat the game in this section of chapter 3.
No way.
Yeah, you can totally skip Yomi, which we find out is the land of the dead.
Oh yeah, so there's like little dialogue options for you to choose. Is that how you can do it? No, how do you end up?
If you don't get hit at all, if you play perfectly, you end on like a lonely, sad like ending. Like it's a short ending. Like after chapter 3, you beat Kangaroo, and then you pretty much just go off into the sunset with the whole village destroyed, your sister dead, everything, and you're just a lonely Ronin, and that's it. It's like a really depressing ending, but you can end it with chapter 3.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was glad that I sucked, so I could, kind of
experience
see the rest
real
of it.
Game. Yeah,
exactly. Not skip the other 4 chapters.
It's like Far Cry when you can just sit there for like
10
minutes and then just finish the game.
That's exactly what I thought of. Yeah. So going into chapter 4, you're dead, and you're following Aiko's ghost, your sister's ghost. Now at this point I lost a little bit I got a little confused, because he kept calling his sister his love. And I'm like, is this like Luke and Leia kind of love? Like kissing your sister?
I think you're reading too much into it.
I guess I was, but he said it multiple times. I was like, all right. Cause there's later on, like they like join hands and like hold hands up to each other and hug each other. And I'm just like, are you really brother and sister?
But really, did
I read this right?
From chapter 4 to almost the rest of the game, I mean, like you're in Yomi, you're in like this demon underworld, and this is where it came like it was long in the tooth for me.
Oh yeah,
was this
Yomi,
section?
It really was a trek.
My goodness, like this is Trek in Yomi, because the most of the game is in Yomi. So it's not Trek to Yomi, it's Trek in Yomi or Trek out of Yomi, because
through Yomi. It should be called Trek to in through forever going through Yomi.
Not knowing what Yomi meant, it's like the spiritual underworld or whatever. Not knowing what that meant, I'm like, am I really fighting zombies in this samurai game? Like, what is this?
They sounded like Gollum. They were just like
you couldn't really understand them. They were just speaking gibberish. But yeah, this is where I'm like, okay, this is where like the the weird puzzles came into play. This is where you're fighting just like spirits and underworld zombies and demons and things like that. And I'm just like, wow, this is not what I thought the game was going to be. I did not realize I was going to be fighting undead people who are just like lost and stuck in this spiritual underworld. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, Gollum-like creatures in chapter 4, and then at the end of this chapter, they give you a dialogue choice. Yeah. Which I think you were alluding to earlier. Which one, do you remember which like direction you chose? I went with Kaguro must pay.
Yeah, it was revenge. 100% revenge on every single dialogue. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
It was like, you could stay here with your sister. It's like, no, I am going to avenge everyone.
That's right. Let's go. Yeah, that's the mindset I had too. So this leads to chapter 5 where we're still in Yomi, and instead of fighting, like Gollum-like characters, we start fighting spirits, and they appear, disappear, they float around. They introduce like a witch-like character that brings other spirits, and you fight. And like you said, this brings on the puzzles, and this was the longest level ever, chapter 5.
I think this is why I turned the game off to play something else.
Yeah, this one I definitely cheesed the boss. I remember because I think it was kind of early on. I discovered I felt like sometimes the sword slashing is because you could hold a direction and hit the button and it would do like long sword play. Yep. But if you took your hand off the directional pad and you just hit the X, he was like Flurry Man. And I discovered that if I turned my back to a character and then I walked backwards towards them and then immediately pressed X a bunch of times, I could spam like X. And it was like 3 quick hits. It was like 3 quick hits.
That's exactly what I did. Once I figured out that what this game is a side scroller. So if you're facing the right of the screen and you want to go left, you hit left, but you're going to be walking backwards.
Right.
And you have to hit a button to actually turn the character to the other way, which was
weird.
A weird gameplay mechanic. But once I figured out that if you're not facing the enemy and you backslash them, it was the easiest way to kill them. And that's how I killed 95% of the enemies in Yomi.
Great minds think alike. My goodness, that's hilarious.
But I didn't figure out like if you're hitting forward, if you're facing an enemy, hitting forward and hitting the attack button, like he does, like the long sword, kind of
like a lunge.
Like it was the worst move in the game. The worst move.
Yeah.
Like, and then once I figured out, he has different moves if you're not hitting the directional button. I was like, once you get that you hit X a whole bunch of times and you get that flurry. It was that or the backwards slash.
Exactly.
The only 2 moves I pretty much did the entire game. Yeah, there were a couple of spots where you have to parry because you're gonna die if you don't. But that's how I killed almost all the enemies in this game. And then once I learned that, I was like, they're like giving me new combos, like learn this new combo. I was like, I'm not gonna use any of these. Like, why? Nope. You want me to use X and Y and also like no.
Some of those combos were like, I thought Sifu had not weird, but complicated combos. Like this one was like backwards X, down X, pause, X, Y, Y.
I'm not playing. This isn't Mortal Kombat, guys. No. We're not playing Street Fighter. We're not playing any of these games. I'm going to use just X. This is a side scroller. Yeah. Why do I have so many combos?
There were so many. Did you use the finisher button at all? I think I used it twice.
No, I found out that there's a finisher one, but every time like I killed an enemy, like by the time I came up to him, I'm just like furiously hitting X, and so I didn't do I might have done that once because there might have been a trophy or an achievement to get that. So I think I did it at least once, but most of the time I just killed them because I was furiously mashing X.
Yeah, for sure. So so we go through chapter 5 and then we go into chapter 6 where we realize we want to leave Yomi and we want to go back to the land of the living to avenge our village and we come to in chapter 6 a choice, and it's this spirit that I don't remember the name of. It was like a boy spirit, and they were just like, do you want to choose love or duty, or do you want to like deny the gifts? Now, to this point, I had been revenge. And I was like, you know what? I usually pick the good way. I'm going to do love. And so I picked love and immediately regretted it. Like, I was like, no.
Was that the one where it was like, you can stick here and stay with Yomi with Aoki or whatever her name was in Yomi?
kind of it goes to that eventually.
Yeah.
So like you pretty much with the love track, you hug Aoki and you say, I'm gonna avenge you, but I'll be back. And then you stab your sensei ghost, and then you go back to the living. And so
that's a sentence I never thought I heard. You stab your sensei ghost.
Yeah, your sensei dad ghost. You stab him, which I was like, why do you have to stab him? Just say no,
gracious.
thank you.
Yeah,
heck? It's like someone offers me, like a glass of milk. I'm not going to be like, no, stab. Just say no, thank you, and move on.
Right?
Instead,
yeah, it's got a little violent there, son. What are you doing?
It did. So, which one did you choose here at the end of chapter 6?
I wanted to go back into the real world because I still needed to avenge him. I was like,
did you choose duty or did duty?
Yeah, I chose duty because I was like, what? I left.
You got the best ending.
I left all of my villagers behind, and I was trying to redeem myself. And I'm like,
yeah,
I have to finish my story. I have to do this. I have to go back to the real world. I'm not sticking around. Yes, I love you, sis. And sorry, Dad, but I need to go because there's so many people that need me. So that's why I chose duty.
Yeah. So with duty, you. Sorry, I just think of Chandler when I say duty every time. But when you choose duty, you stab Aoki, and then you say, "Let's go, Dad. This is for duty."
Mm-hmm.
Now, neither of us chose the reject the gifts. That one's the darkest one because if you reject both the gifts, you actually become your enemy, and the ending of it is you're the samurai bandit leader.
Oh wow!
And you're like leading the army to destroy other villages. You become what you hate. And I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't choose that one. So yeah. So whether you choose whether you choose duty, love, or rejecting the gifts, you go back and you're back to the end of chapter 3 when you died at the hands of Kangaroo Guy. And from there, you finish going through the village. Of course, this is the part where like you see him and you're like, oh, straight path to the guy. And then like a building falls down on fire and you have to go around. Mm-hmm. That happens like 2 times. There's a part
where I felt like that was a lot of times.
Okay, maybe I was underselling it. Yeah, 50 times they destroy the path.
Now we haven't talked about like up until this point, you're not only getting more combos, but you're also getting a bow and arrow. Yes. You're getting your shurikens. You're getting some other thing, and just like, and man, how satisfying was it when there was an enemy that was coming at you, and you did your bow and arrow, hit him with the arrow, and it felt like it was supposed to be like this big boss scene. You hit them, they fall immediately down. You're like, suck it.
Oh, there was like half a dozen, if not a dozen, mini boss scenes where it goes into a cutscene. Which cutscene? It's just they talk back and forth, and they're like, "You are not going to pass by here." And Hiroki's like, "Yes, I am. I'm going to destroy you." And then the guy's like, "I am going to destroy you!" Ah! And then you're just like, "Pew!" And then you just and like you get a bow and arrow, you get little throwing knives, and then like I think it's in chapter 4 or 5, you get a cannon, which
my gosh,
really slow to load, but like it would knock out everybody in front of you.
Yeah, that's right, the cannon. But yeah, it was shades of Indiana Jones, where that guy has his swords, and then Harrison Ford just pulls out his gun and shoots him, and then moves on. That's what it felt like. Oh man,
I get a kick out of that every single time. It was so satisfying to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, once you go through the village, once you escape, there's a fire part where you're like running away from fire, which I thought was pretty cool. It was like a little bit of a Crash Bandicoot or whatever, like escape.
Yeah.
Where you had to move pretty quick. That was fun. But then you get to the boss. He has 2 phases. In the first phase, he didn't even get close to me. I emptied like all my arrows, all my knives, all my gun into him, and he was done. And I was like, yeah, I got him. And then he like he's like flame on, and he turns into the Human Torch. And I'm like, crap, I don't have any artillery left. But I still just mashed the X button and
still do the same thing.
Yep, just destroyed him. So did you have any experiences or fun things happen in the final level?
No. It was the same gameplay mechanic for me. I stuck with what worked. I emptied all my my throwables and things like that, and it wasn't that bad of a final boss.
So why don't you share with the class your ending, the duty ending?
So the duty ending, So you are back in your village. You build the village back up. You pretty much say like, hey, this is what I was born to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so then it cuts to future point where it's basically a reversal of roles as the beginning of the game, where your dad was teaching you, and now you're teaching another boy. I don't know if it's your son. I can't remember.
I think it is. He looks just like him from the beginning of the game.
So, and then it was just like a circle. So, and I think so. It was a nice bookend.
That was
choosing the duty for sure.
When you get the chance, always choose the duty. Yeah, that I was really jealous of not having that ending. I didn't know you had chosen that, but I went back. I chose the love one because I was like, choose love. Love wins, blah, blah, blah. And then I watched all the endings. I was like, oh, man, I should have chosen duty. So like I said, I chose love. And pretty much you defeat Kangaroo. And then you tell him, hey, you chose the way of hate. And I chose the way of love. The end. And then the house falls on top of both of you. You die. And then you join Aoki or Aiko. Aiko?
Yeah,
Aoki?
maybe
it's Aiko. I'm sorry. Any Japanese speakers.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is, to be honest.
We're uncultured swine. It did start with an A. Aiko. Maybe it was Aiko. I'm going to change it to Aiko.
Aiko? I thought that was a different game.
Maybe it was. Dang it. So you join your sister in the afterlife. And this is where, again, it felt like kissing cousins, kind of like it was like they walk up to each other and hold their hands up to each other, like, and just like, here we are together at last. Like in the afterlife, you hug, and then it just zooms out. You're like on Avatar, like floating islands in Yomi. And I'm like, man, lame.
Yeah, that does sound pretty lame.
Because he kills Kangaroo Guy. He could have totally walked out before the building fell on top. I'm like, he was right next to the entrance, exit, whatever. And then he just lets it fall on top because he wants to be with his sister. Yeah. I'm like, I didn't realize that's what I was choosing when I chose love. I should have chosen duty. So,
and I'm going to stop you right there because her name's Aiko, Aiko.
Aiko.
Yeah, so you're right.
Okay, Aiko it is. Very good. So yeah, and that's it. That's Trek to Yomi.
Yeah,
with Hiroki and Aiko. And
yeah, I was glad I played this game. I thought it was.
I was too.
Yeah, even though there's some things where it got repetitive, it got a little boring, got a little long in the tooth. I think we said long in the tooth more in this episode than I've said in my entire life. But
might be right.
Yeah, this game was an experience that I'm glad I played this game.
Great. All right. Well, that's all of our time that we're going to take to talk about Trek to Yomi. Mm-hmm. If you played it yourself and want to share some thoughts, you can join us in our Discord. That will be in the show notes. You can conversate with us there. You can conversate with us on Twitter. We love chatting in the old Twitter sphere. You can also join us when we occasionally stream games. I did not stream this one, but you can stream it yourself and let us know. But yeah, join us on twitch.tv where we are streaming lots of different games, GMG, VGBC, or book club games, Zelda games. Me, Chris, and Mark are doing that streaming Saturday to Sunday or Sunday to Saturday, however that goes. You can also, if you want to throw $1 or more in the tip jar, you can consider supporting us on Patreon at the URL that's in the show notes. And then finally, if you can't toss a coin our way, maybe you could toss a exclamation mark, a rate, a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Spotify. It helps us reach new joiners, whether you want to give us stars or whatever. We hope you will let your voice be heard. Speaking of which, you can also call 929 GMG Guys to give us questions, comments, feedback. There are so many ways to reach us. You have no excuse not to communicate back. We would love to hear from you. So with that, we have finished our inaugural episode. Look forward to more episodes where we're going to spoil, roast. Again, we're going to do some ratings. I'm very excited to talk about some of the other games we've played, rate them, and we're gonna enjoy this Game Pass adventure together. So, all right, Pat, along with you, our beloved friends, family, and joiners, go get your good morning this week, and may God bless and guide your lives as you live, as you work, and as you game.